Hi there, this is Sheena Rowlands and today I'm sharing with you my latest layout for Hey Little Magpie. For this layout I'm using Paige Evans' Garden Shop collection. I've decided to use paper 3 as the basis of my layout, so I'm just removing the manufacturer's strip. I prefer the pink in the top left corner, so I've just rotated it. Now I've got loads of buttons in my stash, so I've gone through them and I've picked out colours that coordinate with this paper. In my mind, I've decided I'm going to lay out a shape in buttons on this paper in the circles. So I'm just having a go at it at the moment, just laying the buttons on top of the circles and to try and make a heart shape. I don't need it to be perfect and I'm not totally sure it was going to work to start with, but I decided it didn't need to be exact. I don't know if you can see it carefully. I'm just trying to match the pink on the pink, the green on the green. Got some peachy buttons there and some yellow too. I don't want to cover the whole of the spots on the paper, so I'm trying to find buttons that are slightly smaller than the circles I'm putting them on, if that makes sense. I've decided I'm going to sew each of them down, so I've gone through my embroidery flosses and I found a load that coordinate really well with the paper. So I've just pushed them aside with my needles as well, while I have a think of how I want to embellish this. I don't want to sew all these buttons down to then cover them all up. So I'm just going through the ephemera pack just to see what I would like to add over the top. I'm in two minds whether I want to do some sort of diagonal embellishments, so above, below and then to one side of the photo, or whether that's too much. So I'm just having a look in the pack what flowers go with this paper and my photograph, and then I can carry on with sorting out the background. So the inspiration for the buttons was actually one of the other papers in the range. There's one with circles with buttons on, and I thought actually that would be perfect to use up some of my stash and to make this layout too. So I bring in paper 12 and I decide that I might want to cut a couple of the sentiments out to potentially use as either embellishments as the title. So I've done that as well. I'm just also still colour matching across the layout. So I'm now going to use the threads and I'm going to stitch the buttons down individually. That sounds like a lot of work, but actually it wasn't really. I just pricked the holes through the buttons first so that I could make sure I knew where they came from. And in fact, I think before that I even took a photograph, just so if they did all slide off, I would know exactly where they were before, because there's nothing more infuriating than that. So you can see I've lined the buttons up on three sides of the 12 by 12 in order, starting with the big one at the bottom so that I can actually know where they go. Because I don't stitch them all in the same colour, I try and match the thread to the buttons. So I think I use 2 or 3 different green flosses. There's definitely at least 2 pinks and yellows, etc. So I'm doing them. I'm not necessarily stitching them down in the order that they're lined up. So that's why I've been a bit military around the edge, and I've got my photo as a backup plan in case it all goes pear-shaped. Now I'm not going to subject you to watching me sew every single button on, but actually some of them I've done them in different directions. So if there was 4 holes in the button, I've done a cross. Some of the ones I've done 2 lines, just trying to make them all slightly individual. I did try and get different sizes and different types of buttons. I don't know whether you've got lots in your stash, but I was a bit shocked by how many I actually do have. But I really like the way that they look on this paper. So I'm just going to finish that off. There they are, all sewn down, and I'm going to trim it a little. I think I take ½ an inch off so that I can actually put it onto some white just to calm it down a little bit. I do round the corners of the pattern paper before I stick it onto the white. I didn't actually gut the white. I've got plenty of white cardstock and I thought it would actually support the weight of the paper with the buttons attached. So I left it as it was. So I just stuck that down to the white cardstock. Obviously I've got the threads on the back, so it's not perfectly flat, but it's enough just to support it. So I'm starting to look at how I want to embellish this. I've got this photograph that I really wanted to use. I chose this photo specifically when I decided I was going to use the buttons because it's actually a picture of my mum and her sister. And it reminds me of the era when all your clothes were handmade. So the cardigans they're wearing were handmade by their mum, knitted by their mum. And even though they were sisters, not twins, everything was matching, everything was homemade. But when I say homemade, I actually mean of the era, everything was really professional. It was much cheaper to make clothes and to make jumpers and cardies and things. So I wanted to actually record this in this layout. I have actually scrapped this photo before because I don't have many photos from that era. And I just thought it would be nice to actually remember that these clothes were made specifically for them with love. So I'm just going to put a couple of layers behind the photo. I've gone with 2 colours of papers that actually coordinate in that area of the layout where I'm going to cover the buttons. So I've gone for a pink and a yellowy orange. Now I actually want to make a pocket behind this photograph, and I look at a couple of tags to put in. I do change that later on, but it still remains a pocket. So I'm going to cut like an L shape of foam just to support the part of the photo that isn't on the buttons, which will still give me enough room to hide my journaling behind it. So I'm adding the foam to the back of the photo with some wet glue, and then I'll use some double-sided tape to then attach it to the layout when I've got the position correct. Now you might wonder why I've put the buttons underneath the photograph, because you can't see them, but it's just like sod's law that if I didn't put the buttons there, I'd move the photograph and realise there was a gap in the heart shape. So it just felt easier just to do the whole heart to start with, and then I could actually play around with it and not worry about having to come in afterwards and try and stitch a button down underneath the edge of the photo, because I don't think too far ahead, and things do change when I'm making and creating. So I think I'm happy with the way that photo looks, and I'm going to start to bring in the embellishments. I'm trying to look what to put around the sides, and I'm starting to think actually less is more with this. I think the buttons may not be that obvious from above for the camera angle, but when you actually see it in person, they're quite prominent, and I think they're quite a really nice visual feature. So I'm thinking of doing a cluster top left and bottom right to the photograph. So obviously then I'm thinking, what colours do I want to bring in? And I decide that the white, like daisy type flowers, actually pop better than the ones that coordinate with the colours of the background paper, if I'm making sense. And also that brings in the white from the edge as well, and the fact that it's a black and white photograph. So I really like the way that that's coming along. So I'm using the You and Me, or Me and You as it is, from the paper 12 that I cut out earlier, still as the title for this layout. So I really recommend you check out this range in the Hey Little Magpie store. It's got some really beautiful colours in it, obviously, and some great ephemera, very typical of what Paige makes, and it's got her stamp on it. It's come out in autumn, obviously, in the UK. To me, it's got more of a spring feel, but as I say, really versatile. And this is the second layout I've made from this range recently. So do check out the video for the other layout where I used her stamp set. So I'm now just tweaking, adding some greenery around the photographs, just to, around the flowers above and below the photograph, just to highlight that there. Just putting some of it on foam pads, and this is the journaling that I've put, so it's got their name on it on the tab and it pulls out. So this is the full image. Thank you so much for watching this video. These are the close-ups as well, as you can see where the buttons show up really well. Thanks so much for watching. Do check in again, give me a thumbs up if you liked it, and I'll see you here soon. Bye for now.